question and answer session at the end. Please don't forget to, you guys all signed in already, and you have some sheets up here if you want to jot down any questions you might think of for later on. So in this meeting this evening, we'll cover the purpose of the program, the terminology that we'll use throughout this meeting, the program overview, what the implementation and timeline might look like, and then any questions at the end. And those online can enter questions in the chat box, or even we have our contact slide at the end with our emails, and you can always email us any questions that you think of at a later date as well, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can with those. All right, next slide. So what is the purpose? So every 3 years we have a review of our water utility with the DNR representative, kind of gauge the health of our department and overall operation. And the last 2020 report, and those are called sanitary surveys, the following recommendation was made by the DNR, and you can kind of see that up on the slide there, in which it stated, the department encourages that the city to move forward in finalizing the development of a private water main maintenance program. Such a program would allow the city to ensure all private water mains are able to provide firefighting capacity when needed, and may help reduce water loss due to locating previously unidentified leaks. And as our letter stated, providing and maintaining the safe water supply is a priority for the city of De Pere, and we're proud to deliver that every day. The city water utility also provides for the safety and general welfare of its residents through the fire protection, or the fire system that we have with all the hydrants. And this is accomplished by following the laws, regulations, and prudent management and best practices. With all that in mind, we began the process of developing this program. The idea was first brought to the Board of Public Works in April of 2021. And since then, we put together an extensive list of private water systems that exist throughout the city of De Pere, as well as a map showing the locations of these private systems. And that's why you guys are here today, because you received a letter stating that you have private hydrants and a private system. Next slide. Oh, you got it up there. So here's some of the terminology that we'll be using, the private project terminology. Next slide. So kind of describe what a public water system is. And a public water system is defined by the Safe Drinking Water Act as a system that provides drinking water to at least 15 service connections, and regularly serves an average of 25 individuals daily, at least 60 days out of the year. These systems are typically municipal community systems found in cities, towns, and villages, the city of De Pere. The next, a private water system is a private system and not operated or controlled by the city. It's basically the same thing. It's 15 connections serving 25 customers for 60 days. It's the same thing, but it's not controlled and operated by the city.
Not necessarily 25 connections.
It's not necessarily 25 connection, right? It's based off of we'll get into this a little bit. It's based more off of a hydrant, private hydrant. So this could be an apartment or condo complex that may have hundreds of thousands of feet of water main, or one or a dozen fire hydrants and valves. Examples being Coral Street apartment complex, the Lake Park Estates, Nicolay Landing, the Gables, and Nicolay townhouses. Other examples for the industrial and commercial properties that are private systems would be the K&KW distribution warehouse up on Lawrence Drive and Shearing Road, which is the old Shopko warehouse. The Walmart Menards complex has a private system. Festival Foods on Main Street is a private system, and the Festival Foods office complex on Lawrence Drive is a private system, and that actually runs all the way through where the bank and stuff is there. And also one of the major ones in the city is St. Norbert College. And we'll show an example of that later on. So for a hydrant, we define that, you can go to the next one. Yeah, there you go. This is important. So the private hydrants is what we use to help guide us when we identify the properties in the community that would be part of this program. Private hydrants are tracked as part of the water billing program. And as you can see, a private hydrant is defined as any hydrant whose lead is connected to a private water main, a private lateral, or a public main where the hydrant lead is owned by the customer. We have identified 72 of those private systems throughout the city with at least one private hydrant. Obviously, some have many more than that. Next slide, please. So valves, typically a gate valve is what is used to control and shut water off the street. Leak detection is something that was mentioned a little earlier. We use that to track down leaks, and that's very important to us. Though you may not be able to see it, even brand new water mains leak, which is a waste for all utility customers. The systems that are not regularly inspected or maintained tend to leak significantly more water, which raises operational costs and increases water rates. Just what we're trying to avoid. For example, the city, we facilitate a citywide leak detection program every 2 years. In fact, we're doing one citywide this year. So you'll see my staff running around the city, painting curb boxes blue and make sure that everything is uncovered, identified for the contractor that comes in and performs that. So
I just add, one of the biggest things is we actually have to do an annual Public Service Commission reporting, everything that Eric and his team does. And we consistently been having, in the teens for water loss, and water loss is unaccounted water. And we do, like Eric had indicated, every other year, we go through to tighten up our system. We might have 30 to 40 leaks. And the amount that's leaking, it's actually hundreds of thousands of dollars in revenue that's lost to the ratepayers, and affects you as public, private system, not only as a customer in the Pere. And doing our diligence to tighten up our system, we're still consistently having a loss, and it's one of the probably one of the bigger reasons we're pushing this private system maintenance, because we need to have the private systems have a survey done like we do ours, because I'm quite confident every system that, when you see the maps up there, every system up there has a leak in it, guaranteed. And and by doing this, we'll be able to tighten up your system, which actually reduces our water loss, without helps all the ratepayers, because the more water loss is, the more costly it is to the water utility, which we pass that on to all the ratepayers. So we're trying to minimize that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks, Scott. Next slide. Yeah, and that here's basically the map of all the private systems that are located in the city. And if you guys want me to email that to you, I can certainly do that as well. Next slide. So here's an example of a private water system. This is St. Norbert College. You can kind of see that the thick purple lines signify, where the private mains are on our GIS. That's pretty typical of what we use in our mapping system. Some of these private hydrants you can also see on there, also marked. The city currently honor a longstanding agreement with the college to operate and flush their hydrants at least once a year. It was something that was in agreement long before I got here, so we just kind of continued it. It also helped to kind of spur us and give us ideas of helping to put this program together. So if we did do this for St. Norbert College, what are the possibilities of us doing this for all the other private systems that are in the city as well, offer the same a similar type program. So yeah, next slide.
And then one thing I want to add, the maintenance of the system. One of the things Eric and his team does on a regular basis, they flush every hydrant in the city, annually, and do maintenance. And the reason for that is we want to make sure that if there's a fire or anything, the fire department can get on that hydrant and actually draw water and it functions. And when I say that, a lot of times, if you don't do maintenance, you might spin a top, you get in the water. So part of the diligence on the private side is operating those hydrants and maintaining them, because you want to have the fire department be able to hook up to a hydrant near your facility to help, basically knock down a fire. You have valves in your system, at the same time, if they're not maintained, they can be broke shut. You may have, for example, have something that's you lose, water pressure in here. Maybe your valves on your existing system is, a shut. You're not getting the flows. And by doing the maintenance, exercising the valves, exercising the hydrants, you're making sure you're getting adequate supply for your facilities. to function in your operation, but as well as providing that fire service that's needed, hopefully never needed, but when you do need it.
Yep. Thanks, Scott. So, yep, there we go. So here's kind of a continuation of the project overview. Like I mentioned, the board, we took this to the Board of Public Works with our idea to put together this private systems maintenance program in April of 2021. We used the private hydrants to identify all the private water systems that were in the city, and we developed the map as you saw of the private systems using our GIS. We notified the owners of the private systems. That's why you guys received the notice of this meeting. And here we are at the public information meeting in March of 23. Our next step would be to receive public feedback. That's why we're having the meetings, to get feedback from our customers on thoughts of us providing this service or putting this ordinance in place. And then our idea would be, once we receive that feedback and review that, then we would take an update to the Board of Public Works April of this year, 23. And then the Board of Public Works, we'd like to get a Board of Public Works draft ordinance to them in June of 23. And then hopefully an approved ordinance by December of 23. And then implementation would not take place until June or July of 24. So we've got some time, before we just rushing into this and requiring all these things to be done immediately. So,
and that is the tentative date. We'd like to see it going up the process as far as July 2024. The reason for in the summer months, typically you pass an ordinance that goes in effect right away. Well, it doesn't do you folks any good. If you're gonna, you can't flush hydrants, you can't do stuff, during the winter months. So, Eric and myself and the team discussed it. The best time to really implement where it goes into effect will be the summer months, where the private systems can hire somebody to go and flush hydrants, that sort of thing, in the summer months. So that, could be, that date may fluctuate depending on the feedback we do get. Unfortunately, you see all the parties that are on that map up there. We're hoping to have more people attend this, because it does affect you, because it actually, this maintenance type program is going to require, it will come at a cost to each private system, depending on how big your system is. And, we kind of joked a little bit. We figured, we laid out all these chairs. I thought, you may have a big crowd, and thank you 3 gentlemen for showing up tonight. So I know we do have one online, but I think we had sent out how many notices?
Yeah, we sent out over 70.
Yeah, so that's how many private systems we got. So it's just, not a very good percentage, but right now that's intent. We're getting the feedback, and then we're baby stepping into it. Like Eric had indicated, we started in 21 to letting our elected officials know, and then we're starting the process moving forward. So
the next slide will kind of go over what the new ordinance requirements might look like. So what some of the requirements might look like is you would enter into an agreement with the city or a contractor of your choosing to perform the general distribution maintenance. This could be simple distribution maintenance, such as valve turning, as Scott kind of mentioned, hydrant flushing and leak detection. Any issues found would be repaired at the owner's cost. Hopefully you would provide the city with GIS and survey data and as-builts, and then we can get that added to our system. So we'd have the water mains and valves and hydrants located on our maps as well, which would also help, us in the future, if you choose to have the city do the maintenance, help us to identify where stuff is locating and stuff like that.
And a great example of that, and knowing where your system is and on our maps, say your system needs to be shut down because you have a break, we'll be able, without having that information, we don't know how to shut your system down.
We just had that issue at Walmart.
Walmart with that incident with the, standoff that you probably heard on the news. The fire department wanted us to shut that system off. Couldn't. We didn't know anything where anything is. It's a private system. So by knowing where your system is, it allows us to get in, in these emergency situations. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and also we've had kind of build off of that. In the last few days, I've had 2 private system customers call me about repairing valve boxes. The valve boxes, the large valve boxes that are in the street that we talked about, gate valves buried down there to use for shutting off and isolating water mains. They had been busted off because of snow plowing this last event. Except for we don't snow plow those streets or those areas. It's a private was a private mains, and their private company that plows their streets and maintains their parking lots did it, but they didn't know. They weren't even aware that that's not something that the city will maintain. And so another good reason to enter into agreements such as this is we'd be able to help facilitate with those repairs and stuff like that. If it's not something that we can do, at least we can help point that customer in the right direction of what contractors that we use that are able to perform some of that work as well, because some of it might be out of our scope too as well. So, and then also we'd like to see some fire flow data from those hydrants, and we can help facilitate with that. We have equipment to do fire flow testing, and also provide us with a leak detection report, and that can be worked out through the city or again private contractors that do leak detection work. The city is discussing at this point to even purchase our own leak detection equipment at some point down the road here, so we may be able to actually do that work for you, with the agreement. So to be able to kind of expand our horizons when it comes to that too. And then also provide kind of a report on the operational status of the hydrants and valves in your system. And that's pretty typical of what we have to do as well in the city. Every year we have to provide a status report on all of our hydrants in the city and our valves to the state and to the DNR as well. So it'd just be basically what we're required to do at the city level would be wanting to see at the private level. Nothing, we're not expecting anything more, nothing really less. It's just very similar to what we already go through. So, and kind of in conclusion, the utility wants to ensure that the system would be properly inspected and maintained and fully operational. Both of our systems provide safe, clean drinking water, but also serve as vitally important components of public safety equipment such as fire protection, and like all pieces of equipment, if it's not operated or maintained, it may not work when you need it. And in addition to providing safe drinking water and fire protection, maintenance of your private system is necessary to minimize leaks in the system, and that's one of the main driving forces that Scott already talked about, the leak detection. And with that, I thank you for attending the meeting, and now we're open to any questions and that you might have.
So when you say a private system,
Yeah.
So I got 4 schools in here, but only 2 of my private systems.
Yeah.
That's just the size of them.
So we based private systems off of private hydrants. We went around the city, we identified all the private hydrants that were on properties throughout the city. We did that using our billing software because the hydrants are actually billed for fire. There's fire protection there. So there's a rate on the water bill that actually charges for the hydrants and the water that could potentially go through the operation of that hydrant. So we took all that information, and then we actually did the legwork. We went around to all of the facilities that we had listed, and we took pictures and verified that yes, there are really hydrants there. We just don't want to take the word for it. Maybe the billing system used to be operated over here, and now it's run through Green Bay. Did something in the transition from De Pere to Green Bay get lost in translation? We didn't want to, and if it did, we didn't want to be charging a private entity in the city for hydrants that they don't now have. Maybe there was something that happened there where the hydrants were removed because there was a facility upgrade or downgrade or whatever. So we had to go around and we wanted to make sure that those hydrants were actually there, and so we verified that, and that's how we determined what private facilities and private systems were in the city. Again, it could be one hydrant, like at Lady of Lords, you've got one.
I would say my high school has 3, and I would say the middle school has 1.
Yep, you have 3 there and 1 over there. The other buildings do not, I don't believe, have anything. The middle school has the 1. Yep. And the other elementary schools do not.
All right.
Yep. Nope. They do not have anything there. We actually went around and looked at those facilities. They did not have anything.
So just maintaining that hydrant is what you're.
Yep. We're looking for a requirement to maintain those hydrants, to maintain and for the larger cities, they're also going to have valves, with the gate valves in the system to operate their system, like up there at the old Shopko warehouse. Those 17 hydrants that make the loop around their system, I find it hard to believe that they got hydrants in there and no shut-off valves anywhere through the whole water main that they got there. They probably got a couple thousand feet of water main circling that whole building. There could be any myriad of leaks there on that facility. We have no idea. Neither do they. they don't, as far as I know, they don't even know if those hydrants are even operational. So, I mean, those, that's one of the important things that we look to kind of get down to the bottom, get an agreement with, is how do those hydrants operate, to get them up to operational if they don't. And then how do those valves operate? Let you guys know, whether they operate or not. You try to go to shut a valve off because there's a leak now and it doesn't want to close. It doesn't even want to turn. It's seized up. Now we're going to talk about having to have somebody come in there and a contractor come in there and dig it up and repair those things. So again, those are all things that and then at what Scott talked about is very important to us, is the leak detection, because our operational costs, we're trying to keep, just like everybody else with budgets and everything else, we're trying to keep those operational costs down. And all the leaks that are unfound out there, that water is at a water loss, which is water that we're paying for. We purchase all of our water from Manitowoc public utility. So we buy all that water, and then that water we're already paying for it. But if we're not recouping it on the other end, any kind of revenue, then at some point those rates are going to have to go up to cover the operational costs. And so to try to maintain those levels at a reasonable rate, and not huge increases, we're going to require leak detection on those private systems to verify that there isn't any leaks going on there. Probably we're going to find quite a few. We're anticipating, especially on many of the larger systems, like that old Shopka warehouse, like Walmart, like Menards. There's thousands of feet of water main running through those facilities, and it's, to our knowledge, never been looked at. There was a hydrant that was dumped over there. A semi truck ran over a hydrant over there in the Walmart parking lot a couple of years back, and we showed up there. They called us, and we went and looked at it, and they ended up just kind of standing the barrel back on the part it was completely snapped off, and they just kind of stood it there, and that's basically the way it sat for well over a year, until finally one of the maintenance guys there actually, because we let them know, the maintenance guys there actually did take care of it, and they actually did repair it, although it was a little kitty wampus when they put it back together. It wasn't perpendicular the way it was supposed to be. So, but hopefully it operates. I don't know, but that's the kind of stuff that we do notice in the city that happens on these private systems quite a bit. And again, valves and stuff that get hit and wrecked, and you don't know if they work and stuff like that. So.
So the water that we would be leaking in our system, say at Lourdes, are we being billed at Lourdes on our water bill? This is just lost water.
Yeah, this is lost water before it gets to your meter. So you have a long water service that leads up to that building, because it's set back quite a ways from the street, and there's a T off of that. I would imagine that facilitates where that hydrant is. There could easily be a leak on that T, depending on the age of that water service that's coming there. I would imagine there's probably a minimum of 6-inch line going in there off of our 8 or 10-inch main that's in the street. So, and if it's ductile or clay tile, ductile iron or cast, it's probably leaking.
So you're probably asking, as a private owner, why do I care if I'm not getting billed for it, on a water loss? The issue is, you may not care because it's not costing you anything. But as a water utility, we care because we're getting hammered by the regulatory agencies that we have to tighten up our system. And, without that being there, the only way we can do that on a private system is, basically implement, the ordinance and the program that, Eric was talking about tonight. So.
No, the reason I was asking is, we put in that Aquahawk.
Yeah.
And I'm starting to see how much water we're using. Yeah. It's like,
thank you for signing up for that. We appreciate that.
Yeah, and we're looking at this stuff. It's like, hey, this doesn't look right. So I'm not necessarily that we're being billed, but I'm just wondering how much water is going through that. Maybe it is that leaky thing outside, but it sounds like it's not.
No, more than likely, more than likely it's leaking probably before it gets to the meter. Now, obviously, we don't know how all the pipes are in the ground. It could be designed differently than we're interpreting it here, until we actually, either sit down with you guys and actually try to look at some old, drawings of your facility and get that stuff either surveyed in and then onto our maps. We're just really speculating at this point. Some places, like now in the city, we don't even allow private systems we require them to be master metered. So that service line goes in, the master meter, they run the line back out, and then the valves and all the fire protection goes after that. We incorporate pressure reducing valves and clay valves that will open on an emergency. So once the hydrant side pressure, if the hydrant would open up, once that hydrant side pressure drops to around 20 psi, The system pressure is normally at 55, 60, depending on where you are in the city, 50 to 60, depending on where you are in the city. Once that pressure drops on the hydrant side, that valve opens up, sensing that we've lost pressure, and allows full flow all the way through the hydrant so that they can, use the hydrant for wherever they need to for either putting on a fire or whatever they're doing.
So, but a smaller system may not have a master meter like yours, but then our main, our service could go into their building, and hit the meter, and then they have it required to put a hydrant or two on the backside, so they come off.
Yeah. So it's only you really, that master meter is only catching the line going out to the hydrant, right? So like on the new intermediate school that's built, there's a long service line going to that facility. So even though that's new, there's a possibility when they put that in the ground that could be leaking. You just never know. It's plastic, so it shouldn't be, but you just never know when you put that stuff together whether it really is or not. And that's why we do our system-wide leak detection every 2 years in our city, and even on all of our plastic mains as well. We have our contractor listen and use devices to detect leaks, even on the plastic stuff. Because it's just, we've seen things leak in plastic. We've seen main breaks on plastic already. So it's totally possible. Nothing's perfect.
And my guess is the leaks are happening where the joints are, right?
Yes.
It wouldn't just be
Typically,
in the middle of a pipe. It wouldn't be corroding.
No, could be something that didn't seed right. Could be a gasket that rolled in there when they seed the pipes together, and now you got leaks
the
going on.
hydrant, and all of a sudden it shifted the joint, and now it's
Could be, yes.
shooting
But
water.
if you have gas in the middle, you could have just a small hole in it that, it's leaking and hasn't totally blown or anything like that.
Right.
But I mean, it's typically, like Eric says, that you're at the joints.
Yeah.
A lot of those smaller leaks will just stay down in the trench. They won't even surface until there's something major, that catastrophic that goes on. Right. So we've had valves, that we've discovered later on that were probably in the shape that they're in, were probably leaking for a long time, and we just didn't notice it until it was that day when we went on there and we operated the valve because we're required to turn our valves. And we got there, and oh boy, this thing is leaking pretty bad. And then we contract out to get it repaired ASAP because it's costing us all money.
We had that leak on the concession stand. It wasn't where it was. Right? I'm like, there's obviously water leak, it's been default meters. So I know exactly what you're talking about when we dug it up. Fix it, but it was eroding underneath the building.
Oh yeah. And our soil here in the city of De Pere is very aggressive. So anything metal that you put into the ground when it comes to valving and stuff like that, at some point in time will probably erode and will have to be replaced. It's just the way it is. And unfortunately, they don't make plastic valves that can stand up to commercial use like that. So we are left. We've tried every different type of thing to protect metal being put into the ground, and nothing is perfect. We can only kind of stave it off for a little while longer. So, but yeah, we run into a lot of issues with valves leaking.
And I think we have a valve on the side of the church on the wall. That's not what we're talking about.
No, that's probably some facilities have a large fire line that is actually on the side of the wall where in theory you could hook up to and put something out. Typically, I don't think fire departments are going to use that or hook up to that fire line that's right there on that building. It's just too close to the structure.
The one on the structure is usually a fire department connection. Sorry, I was out there for 25 years. Fire department connection, that's where they actually hook the fire truck to that to boost the system.
Sure.
Because once you get more than 10 sprinkler heads going off, the whole system drops that much that
it
needs more to maintain the system.
Oh, and that's where they get it from.
That's where they add to it.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
So that's just an enhancer.
Yes.
Right, but that's not what we're talking
But
about.
there's
Right.
a butterfly valve that does that adds to that.
There's two of them at night.
Yep.
I learned something new tonight. I don't get involved in all that. You generally interior fire protection stuff and the inner workings of all.
We just give them the water. That's all.
You give me the water. Yes.
That's right.
Yep. The operational stuff to get the water there. But yeah, that's good to know too as
The valve
well.
that you're talking about on the outside, that's going to be one of the shutoffs for usually a zone or something for the fire sprinkler system. So that this way, if a sprinkler head would go off, that the fire is out or something, you need something to shut it off so they can stop the flow. That's
From the exterior
There's
outside
a
the
chain
building.
around it with a lock on it.
Right. Yeah.
Yep, that's what that is.
Oh.
That actually has nothing to do with those with
with those
that
pipes
wire
in the
that's
middle,
there.
right.
That wire that's there is just to boost the system.
Okay. Hey. All right. There you go.
Guess I could ask Al about that. He probably would know.
Yeah, he knows. I know Al.
Yeah. Anything else? Like I said, we got my contact information is up there. Scott and I both have our business cards here. please feel free to reach out to either of us, emails and other things. We'll be posting. Yeah, go ahead.
But you guys could possibly expect that get a crew that you would be doing the inspections no different than a private person, or
Yep. So
is that vested interest in you guys to do that? Or
yep. So how other communities have done in the past, and we kind of based our program off of what the Village of Howard has done. So they put together like a cost sheet, what it would cost each private, what it would cost for the village to come in and operate and maintain a hydrant for that private entity. What it would cost for the village to come in and operate that valve for that private entity. Do leak detection, what's the cost per foot of leak detection, or 100 feet or 1,000 feet, or whatever, however you want to break it down. We will probably end up doing something along those lines so that you guys would know what the cost would be. Say you got 3 hydrants or 6 hydrants. Okay, well, it's $20 to operate a hydrant. I'm just throwing the number out there. I don't think that'll be the number, but whatever, 20, and okay, $120 or $140 or whatever it is to do the hydrant maintenance or whatever you have. Or, $40 to operate each valve. Okay, well, you got $200. So, stuff like that. So you'll have a cost of what it would cost either annually or biannually to do the maintenance on that, on your system and on your equipment that you have. And that way you guys can have something for your budget as well. And we'll have an agreement. Our idea was to have an agreement written up kind of like what the Village of Howard does, and then have the private entities that are interested in that to do that with us, the city, to sign that agreement with us. You can also, as an option, hire people like Ferguson Waterworks. They've got staff that do leak detection. They've got staff that does hydrant maintenance. They've got staff that does valve maintenance. You could always hire them to do it if you think that, maybe their price is better. We would still want to work with you to get your information onto our GIS, so that, we would know where those valves are and hydrants are. That way, just in case something would ever happen, we would be able to better help the fire department or emergencies, whatever they may be, as you could see what happened, like Scott talked about at Walmart. So, we'd be able to kind of intervene in an emergency like that. So
that was my kind of question on it, was because our insurance carrier requires us we do flow tests yearly on
Sure.
hydrants
Awesome.
and stuff like that. We have paperwork documentation of that.
That's great.
So it's actually going to be redundant if you do it. So that's why I was wondering if.
Yeah, and if you guys have that, you guys already do the work, then you can just pass those reports on to us, and that's good.
The leak detection thing, I don't.
Well, let me ask you this question, but you're just doing the flow test. Are you doing a full flush and all that stuff on it?
Yeah, so typically when you do the fire flows on those, Scott, you're running that hydrant pretty good for a few minutes.
Look at
I can show it.
Yep.
You can actually see what the flow was in each of those hydrants.
So that's part of the information we need. So
yeah, this is great.
Unfortunately, they changed their paperwork for 22. They did it, but they didn't change their paperwork. So we're going to get after them because the insurance carrier doesn't like the way they did it anyhow.
Sure.
But that's the way they were doing it.
Yep. No, that's great. So you're already ahead of the game. So you're already doing some of the maintenance on your system already, your facility.
So the leak detection thing, I think, would be definitely a good thing on our part of it too, because our system, the way it runs actually around the outside of the building.
Mm-hmm.
We've had issues before. We have a jockey pump. We know how often it kicks in because it's got a meter our
sure.
thing on, so we know how often it kicks in. That we know there's leaks in the system.
Yep. Yeah. And typically, a lot of those larger facilities, like you said, have their private water main running right around pretty tight to those buildings. And if that's leaking, you could be causing other kind of structural, foundational type stuff around those facilities. That's always a possibility as well.
I was kind of curious because some of these systems, for example, when you do work, you do any digging, you call Diggers Hotline. Are you locating your mains on your facility?
We don't. We have it all. It's all mapped out, and when we contract the contractor, they're in charge of taking care of that part of it.
Sure.
We don't do any of the digging ourselves.
Yep.
So this way they take.
Well, not the digging, but I mean, one of the things, like when we have our system map, like Eric had showed up to St. Norbert's, those are actually within probably a foot of where, in the street, because, we locate and our survey picks it up. On a private system, the challenge is going to be you folks may not know where it is, get it located, so we can pick that up survey information and get it on our system.
Yeah.
And one of the challenges you're going to have when you do a leak detection, you're going to have to know where every valve and where your mains are so they can get on it to do the leak. Like the maintenance you're doing is probably minimal cost. When you do your leak detection every so often, that won't be so costly because I think we spend about $30,000 for 100 miles of main, roughly. So I mean, that gives you perspective, where we're at. I mean, 5,280 feet a mile. So I mean, miles, 104 miles actually would be probably more realistic. And we just bid it all at about 30 grand. That doesn't include repairs, because I mean, the average repair is going to be probably $5,000, and if we have 40 repairs, that's 200 grand we're spending. You know, a private system's not going to have that.
That's where my recommendation would be like something like this, where insurance requires the hydrants be fluent and everything, to have like a separate fee if you're just doing the leak detection.
Yeah, we will.
I like that.
Yeah, we'll
personally,
have that.
because-
Yeah, we'll have that on our when we put the ordinance in place and all that. We'll have all of those fees broken down for your facility. So if it, like I said, if you're capable of doing the fire flows and you're comfortable with maintaining those, realizing that when you pull that hydrant, obviously you have plenty of experience with that, and that hydrant's not operating correctly, you go out and you're getting Ferguson to come in, or maybe you repair it yourself. Water's hydrants are not that complicated to repair if you've been around them long enough to pull the soap apart. That's just information that you pass along to us, and that's easy. And we just contract you for the piece that you're not doing, which would be the leak detection and maybe valve maintenance. Maybe we go and turn valves for you because we have the keys. We also have a trailer, a motorized trailer that we take out and turn all our valves in the city, and we can always bring it out too. And that's set up. If we could get it, depending on where your valves are, we could get that set up to turn those valves, and it's on a torque, so we wouldn't. It's designed not to break anything.
The cost that Eric mentioned that we'll give you is really just guys give you folks another alternative. And when we're not, we're basically there to cover our costs. We're not, not putting any, profit or anything like that on it. It's just what does it cost our operator to go out per hydrant, and then per valve. And then when we do the leak detection, it's going to be per linear foot, because we'll go out and bid it, and we'll get a cost from a contractor. And if they come in and do your system, here's what it's going to cost. Might be $1,500 or whatever.
Yeah, I'm all for that part of it. Especially, but the hydrant part, because trying getting that to our insurance carrier, everything else would be more hassle trying to do yours than adding that to it.
Yeah.
When we already have.
You're already doing it.
You're already doing it.
You got 50% of the maintenance done.
So,
Yeah, if you could produce the reports for your fire flows and stuff like that on your hydrants, then you're good to go.
You get 50%.
We're not gonna try to burden you extra with stuff that's not necessary if you're already maintaining it. So.
And Eric indicated earlier, you're way above the game compared to everybody else that probably heard him for the first time. Like
Right.
you
Yeah. And that's my question is, I have no idea what this is about. So how will I know what needs to be done to know if I can even do it?
Yeah, so we'll be, when we get farther down the road, so we'll take all the input that we get, we'll reevaluate where we are in our program so far. We're still putting it all together. We'll take our update to the Board of Public Works in April. After that, we'll start trying to finalize some of these, and Board of Public Works is a public informational meeting as well, a public meeting as well. So you have the ability to attend those meetings as well to kind of, listen to my spiel to them.
So.
Yeah, they'll get basically the same spiel as this. And then we'll start putting together the guidelines and stuff, the costs and what the requirements will be. And typically they're exactly what we talked about here. We just haven't worked out the dollars and cents of things yet, and on what each thing will cost. What's operating a hydrant going to cost, what's operating a valve going to cost, what's doing the leak detection going to cost. We'll work with you on the survey stuff. You may already have some of your system mapped out, either whatever engineering firm did the facility to begin with.
Right.
They may probably have a copy on AutoCAD or some sort of CAD that they can just give to our GIS people, and then they'll put it on our map. And so that part's probably fairly easy. If they don't, and we can't find something, or something new happened, or there's as built that may not be on your records, we have engineering. We have an engineering team here as well that could go out and actually survey. Take survey, provided we have, we kind of know where everything is. We have the ability to do that. At least get the valves and hydrants on our map so that we can indicate that these are private hydrants and private valves, and then we can work to kind of get the lines for the mains and get that kind of figured out too at some point. But we will work with you on all of that stuff, and we will keep you informed. There will be other letters going out to you guys at a later date when we kind of get some of this detail finalized, letting you know what the requirements will be, and then kind of what the timing of those requirements will be officially, and then what the cost could be if you hire the city to do the work, right. Or if you'll have an option to go with Ferguson or Core and Main or any other contractor that's out there that might be. And then if you do have a private contractor do the work, just give us the reports of the work that was done, and we're good.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
For us, for instance, we have our quarterlies and our annual done by Van's Fire because they have a sprinkler person.
Sure.
They are able to do the flow tests and everything like that
Yeah.
for that. As a private company, private person, you can't do the flow tests. You know, you don't have the equipment to tell.
Yeah, oh, okay. You don't have the-
We do.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
Right.
okay.
You're gonna have, you're gonna have.
I have a little more.
Right, but you're not gonna afford it.
You're probably taking notes because you're gonna do this on the side there, you know, go,
I'm still
full hydrants, right?
I'm still licensed. I retired from the fire department, but I guess I got my license up and everything because eventually I'm gonna retire from here.
Yeah. And
I'm here for 29 years, so.
those fire flows and the private hydrants are information that we'll use to, to make sure that, they have the proper flow. And again, we can also share that information with the fire department so that they have an idea of what those hydrants are flowing, as if it's really worth them hooking up to if something were to happen out there as well. If they're on a smaller line and they're not, their fire flow capacity is not that great, well, then they may not end up hooking up to them in the first place, because they can get more flow from the hydrant out on the street at that time when there's an emergency.
So I'll give you an example. If you drive around the city, you'll see our hydrants got different color caps.
Mhm.
It's all color coded to how much flow will come out of the hydrant.
Oh.
So, and it matches the stick that's on top. So our fire department knows, if it's a blue cap, you're getting well over 3,500. But if we got some areas that got the orange or red cap, you're at the minimum, like 500 gallons a minute.
Yeah, so
That makes
So, I mean, it's very,
Wow.
actually, DNR requires minimum 500, but you're not going to, fight a fire with that. So, I mean, that's kind of why we have it color coded.
Mhm.
And that, by having a fire flow, is basically they know, okay, they have, your facility, you have 500, but out in the street, I can get 5,000, type of a thing. So it's just,
That's the thing. Some of these hydrants are put in, especially by when it was put in, could be after it enters the building. Like ours are actually after the fire pump. So for them to hook into this, you'll get plenty of pressure out of it, but it's going to drop the whole system down
Right.
in pressure.
Out on the street. Yeah.
No, out of the building, but the sprinkler head's down.
Oh.
that makes sense.
See, and that's I have to test like our sprinkler system in the church.
Mhm.
And part of my test is to do a pressure test coming into the building.
Yeah.
So is that what you guys are talking about? Is pressure or
no, there's a fire flow test is actually how much flow is coming out of your hydrant.
oh,
So
at the hydrant?
We would actually.
They're not,
Oh, okay.
they're not asking for anything in the building, because
No,
Oh, okay.
you're probably all as regulated as I am on that.
no, you guys are already taking care of that already.
That's
So,
all.
They'll actually hook 2.5 inch hoses onto the hydrant to see how much flow they can get out of it. They'll go
Oh.
through a meter on their end.
Right, just
You'll
like
see how
shoot
much
through
is
there and
actually
see what's
going
going on.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
we have gauges too that we can hook up to those hydrants and open them up. We'll take a static pressure and flow tester, and then do a calculation. We have a spreadsheet that does a calculation off all that for the flows too as well. So
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, so it's all
since you only have one, we'll put the gauges on your hydrant, and then we'll probably could flip flop it, so we'll probably flow your hydrant and actually put the gauges on our hydrant, whatever one's closest to your facility, and then we'll just work it that way.
okay.
And then we give us the best idea of what's going on there.
So this is the report you get from your
From our
vendor or your contractor? Yeah.
For our sprinkler contractor who takes care of that. This
Oh.
is for the annual report.
Okay.
They actually follow that part out there because fire requirements require that the service annually.
Mhm.
In that, you can actually have them do that part of it. So they actually had it in separate in their work order.
Mhm.
To do the flows and everything of that hydrant.
Oh,
And that's what I'm saying. That's what we're talking about. If that's included that way,
Okay,
it's all
we have
taken care of.
we have the
They're actually
numbers ready.
maintaining it.
Yeah.
They check it afterwards, make sure the drain's working on it, because there's a drain in the bottom of the hydrant,
Mm-hmm.
because if that barrel stays full, it's gonna freeze during the winter.
Oh, right. Yeah. Yeah. All that stuff. Yeah. See, that's all stuff I don't know.
Yeah, we actually go and double check all of our hydrants before everything, because we do our flushing in the fall, so we actually go back and double check our hydrants. We know that there are some problem children ones out there that do not want to drain properly because of sometimes where they're located in the city. There are ones that, some hydrants that are put in wet areas, they do not have the drain, so you got to pump them out, and you actually put a tag on them that says pump. So we make sure that we go around and visit all those hydrants that are our problem children and get them all pumped out for the cold winter. Yeah.
Yeah, there's areas where your sub pump stays running all year long pretty much constantly. chances are the hydrants are plugged because they fill up with water
Yep.
too.
Yep. Yep.
Because I know in Lawrence it's the same thing. They got certain areas they have to keep them plugged because they just fill up otherwise.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, I mean, that's the only way to keep them dry. So,
Right.
yeah.
How many hydrants do you guys have to maintain every year? For like the pier?
1,300.
Over 1,300, 1,365, I think was the last count, 1,365. And obviously, as we've done new subdivisions throughout the years, and we do road reconstruction. Usually when we do road reconstruction and utility reconstruction, it's usually hydrant for hydrant, but sometimes if there's a big gap in there, they will add a hydrant in. But most of our additional hydrants that we gain numbers on are from the new subdivisions that are being developed every year.
Yeah.
So even the ones on the west side here, where they've happened out at Bridgeport Circle, over by Red Maple, Garriman, farther out almost to the Lawrence line there, and then those subdivisions, and then there's one going in out here on off of Lost Dolphin too. So,
Wow.
Mystic Creek.
Yeah.
Outside.
Yeah.
But those are hydrants that are.
So if you guys have no more questions, we're gonna stop recording. So
Yeah, I'm good.
I know, Mr. Richards out there. I know he had one in the chat. I mean, did you have any questions you may have, or?
No, this was very informative. Just so you know, I am a president COO Sistana Fiber, so looking forward to what the expectations are, and certainly support all the work that needs to be done to reduce water leaks in our system as well.
Yeah, welcome, sir. We thanks for joining us. I have talked to your maintenance people over there before regarding hydrants. They've had some questions for us already, so we look forward to working with them as well and facilitating the program to make everything good. So appreciate it.
So, Mr. Richard, you mentioned, did you want the PowerPoint email, or are you just looking for the video?
The PowerPoint, if you could send the PowerPoint, that'd be very helpful.
Yep.
Actually, I got your email address here, and Eric can email that to you tomorrow then.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Have a great evening.
We're going to stop recording now, so thank you for attending.
Thank you, sir.
Bye.
Can I get that PowerPoint?
Yes.